In the den of iniquity, vicinity no pretty, calamity fi hit we any moment, what a pity. Tomorrow never certain, what dwells behind the curtain, the face of evil lurking, with the shifty eyes averting. It's not a steady bubble, that either pop or topple, many will fall and stumble, let the dozers gather rubble. From LA to Colorado, Guinea to Burkina Faso, cannons could reach the towers and the troops will storm the castle. Hey, I say, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. So run, come, make we get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come forget it. I say, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. Lord, run, come, make we get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come forget it. With the rubble steady rising, and hearts are compromising. Convictions here are stifling, making evil appetizing. The fists are steady forming, and countenance is falling. Defenses are withdrawing, possibilities are falling. In these your circumstances, evil will make advances. Pick up your sword and lances, and be sure to take your stances. Victory is never promised, the battle is upon us. Gather the brave and honest, and the righteous in your corners.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Getting Ish Done with Ike and Dr. Thunder. Go ahead, click that like button, share this stream. We're going to be continuing the conversation today about work. Very important part of life, is it not? Jobs and whatnot. How's it going, Dr. Thunder?
I'm all right, man. How you doing?
I'm not doing bad. I'm in the nice rainy Pacific Northwest in Portland, Oregon. It's been a while since I've been over here, but back in the States. As you know, I was here in the flesh last Wednesday for this show, the part one of our conversation, and now I'm in Portland, but I'm doing well. Shout out to Princessa the original, okay, not the fake one. We got Raphael Williams in the building. Thank you very much. Now, so this is a conversation, part two of a conversation that we started last week about the real reason, it says, the real reason why Americans are not going back to work. Now, it is hard to fill positions amongst the non-college educated, meaning you may have skilled labor, even like welders and so on and so forth. The employment market in that area is tight. Why is this? Why are people not willing to go to work anymore? Some people say, oh, maybe it's immigration. We already know what's going on with the college educated people, right? They're all working at Chipotle. They're all working at Starbucks. Okay, it's a different set of problems going on over there. But even amongst the skilled labor, non-college educated people, it's hard to fill these jobs. The unemployment numbers are really low, as we know, right, in general, but they're super low in this area because it is hard to find people. But anyways, last week they talked about several things about, well, maybe people are becoming more entrepreneurial, hopefully, because they're saying, hey, my boss is getting paid 10 times more than he's charging. No, he's charging 10 times more for my labor than what I'm getting. We all know that the American dream of being sold a house and a picket fence doesn't really work anymore. You can't afford the house. You can't afford the middle class lifestyle. You are financing it with debt. The whole country is financing it with debt. We're always raising the debt ceiling every so often. We understand. We get the big picture, right? So we're going to continue that conversation today, Dr. Thunder. I don't know if you had anything that you wanted to say with regards to this, or we're just going to jump right into the video. Mr. Sean Wallace?
Yeah. I did a show with God Rules. It's my Two Dads React, and we covered the McDonald's layoffs, which is like a strange sort of thing, because so you have some sort of simultaneously occurring stuff. So you have a hard time finding people that will work this sort of fast food job. But then you have companies laying off folks at the sort of corporate level. And I thought you made a good point. One of the points I was making was AI, I think, is replacing some of these middle management positions. But you made a point that a lot of these sort of CEOs and these corporations are sort of copycat. So when they saw Elon Musk slicing and dicing at Twitter, and then they saw Zuckerberg doing a similar sort of job over at Facebook, then perhaps McDonald's thinks that they can do the same thing. And of course, the existence of AI and the sort of overbloating of positions in that sort of middle area of companies. Yeah, there you go.
Very,
So
very, very good point. Yeah. Shout out to guys over in Empire in the building. And look, especially publicly traded companies, they have to get their numbers up. Prior to Facebook firing those people, and now their stock has doubled. They were $90, they're about 180 now. Okay. So it's sad when people get laid off, but what tends to happen is, hey, people are like, oh, the company's about to make, company's gonna be more profitable, company's gonna have more cash flow. Let's go buy that company's stock. That's what happens. Okay. And everybody wants to do that. Everybody wants to increase their valuation. Valuations are tough right now with interest rates going up, right? Valuations of the company. And a way to do that is to start slashing people. And in many cases, perhaps rightfully so, because if you can function without these people, then why should you have them there? That's just my little capitalist 2 cents for the moment here. But we're going to continue with our friend here talking about the life of the average working man out there. And I think he's in the middle of talking about taxes and how much he gets taxed left and right and all over the place. But let's continue.
Have on food, where when we buy food, they have to show us what the ingredients are, what's inside, so that we know, right? Well, it'd be really nice to see that everything that you bought, how much of that money was being siphoned out of your, what percentage of it is going to taxes? Because it wouldn't surprise me when everything is said and done, after you pay your state and federal taxes, and then taxes at the gas pump, and taxes here, and additions and fees and park fees and all that, wouldn't be surprised that if you're keeping less than half of your money. And when you start to realize that, and that everything starts getting more expensive, and $6 and $7 gas, the younger people, they're not into it. They don't, there's no point. So maybe it's by decision, maybe it's by circumstances, but this idea of, America being the great, the shopping mall, and consuming, all life is about is just consuming and buying and having all these things. Jack's age kids, they're not really interested in that. That's why you see a lot of them, not into getting cars, because they just don't want to go. They just don't want to do that. They want something different. So if you're trying to get by as a wage earner, it's going to be tough. You're going to be really the person that's going to be behind the 8-ball and squeezed. What I think is a good thing is that this is going to force people to get away from that model and to start thinking creatively. Thinking of ways that you can start small businesses, thinking of ways that you can take advantage of this current economy.
Okay, so he finally got here, Dr. Thunder. Like we were hoping he would get here, right? We were hoping that he would get to the point whereby he would start talking about, hey, maybe people will pivot. Do you think people will pivot? I mean, are people all of a sudden going to become, entrepreneurs all of a sudden? Perhaps, ChatGPT that you mentioned earlier, or AI in general, is making it easier for you to kind of maybe start certain things. But in the same way, because business is about competition, it's also making it easier for everybody else, right? So it's like, oh, you can easily now write a business proposal and do this and this. Like, well, yes, so is everybody else. And so the people who are more, it just kind of everything levels off again. But what are your thoughts about his statement that people might move towards a more entrepreneurial, creative direction?
Yeah, so I think you raised all the issues. Anytime you sort of make something readily accessible, that means everyone has access to it. And as you said, it ups the game. So now, in order to be truly different, truly innovative, truly a game changer, the bar is so much higher. The bar ends up being so much higher. So I would argue, you're either going to see, I think you will see a few more people, a handful more. You'll see a lot of people taking a chance, but I think also what's going to happen on the other side of that is potentially you could force people's hand, and maybe you see a rise of minimalists.
Mm-hmm.
You know, folks that are like, okay, well, obviously this capitalism thing, this, you know, getting drunk off of the, off the amount of stuff that I can acquire, that's run its course. We've screwed the earth up. We've, done X, Y, and Z. That doesn't seem like that's doing anything. The economy, we screwed the economy up because people just want more stuff. So maybe the minimalist thing is the thing to do.
The whole fact of, minimalism is, it has always existed, right? But this term is fairly new, right? In the zeitgeist, millennials, let's just say millennials, have been kind of doing this thing where, for example, they're not buying houses. They're more into quote unquote experiences as opposed to gathering of things, which, some of them might take it to mean, that they feel righteous. It's just, well, you're just broke. They talk about the boomers, and all these boomers are all just so like self-absorbed. They just wanted stuff. Like, yeah, they could afford it. I'm sure if you had boomer money, you would be doing the same thing too. The value of minimalism notwithstanding, right? I understand that there is a moral case for that kind of a thing. But all of us, millennials are not just all of a sudden more moral. They're just broke. Okay, I just had to say that part. But you're right in the sense that we are seeing this trend of people not buying homes as much, people not falling into certain kind of traps, and there's certain tracks are not working. I think education is the next one, by the way, Dr. Sutter. I think that this idea of, okay, you're gonna get into this track and you're gonna get this degree and you're gonna owe all this money so you can work at Chipotle. At some point, people are gonna stop doing that. People are gonna have to stop doing that.
Yeah, the education system, the way that we do it, is totally in trouble. It's totally in trouble if it doesn't go through a massive, massive overhaul. And I'm talking quickly. I'm talking within the next, I don't know. I think 20 years might be cutting it close. If it doesn't go massive overhaul, I'd say within the next 20 years, I think it's done.
Cost of education. When do you think that's going to come down? College degree. Do you think that your son, for example, is going to be paying this ridiculous amounts? Let's talk about on average, maybe some places and some degrees and some things are still, but how much more, how many more how much longer, okay, how many more graduating classes are we going to have of this crazy college cost? Should parents right now still be planning to have these loaded, college funds for their kids? What are your thoughts about that?
Well, this is interesting. At the institution I work at, years ago, they used to have, and it's a PWI. They used to have it so that if you were a faculty member, then what that meant was that your offspring and your spouse got free tuition. 100% free. Now, yeah, you still have to pay for room and board, and you still have to do like that. But obviously, tuition is the biggest expense, right? So that's a big deal. And then what did they do? They said, well, that seems like too much of a benefit. It's costing us too much money, right? Because too many of the kids were going to the school, taking advantage of that, getting that, significantly subsidized, education. So then they said, okay, now 50%. So now it is 50%. Now, okay, that's better than zero. But look at what they do if you have a spouse that also is a faculty member. So you're both faculty members, say you're both tenured professors, and you have offspring that you want them to go to college at that institution, and perhaps it's a strong reason why you've even stuck around for this long, because you want to be able to subsidize their education. Now, you'd think 50% plus 50% equals 100%. Apparently 50% plus 50% equals 75%.
You know, it's
Yeah.
quantum physics.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is, even and then I mean, I can itemize. There's a long list of things. So at my alma mater, I went to Western Michigan University, and as a graduate student, as a graduate assistant, I had free parking. All of the faculty members had free parking. Okay. As a faculty member at my current institution, I pay close to $1,000 a year for parking. Okay. At my former institution, I got free tickets along with a sizable percentage of the student body. I got free tickets to the football game. Still Division I, football. It was MAC, but still Division I football. Free tickets. Do you think I can get free tickets to school I go to now? No. That I go to, that I work now? No.
Mm-hmm.
So now, I haven't gone back and checked this, but I strongly suspect that faculty members at my alma mater now pay for parking, and also they're probably not getting free tickets to football games. And also, dare I say, if they were getting a subsidy, say 50% off, or say if they were getting 100% off tuition, I bet they're not getting 100% off tuition for their offspring now. So this is a trend. This is a trend of this kind of stuff. So it's not just the students that are getting pinched. Now, of course, upper administration, their salaries are ballooning. And for instance, like the football coach, those folks, they're getting more and more money each year. But when you count the cost of living and everything else, and the used to be incentives, that stuff is it's by the wayside. So I'm saying that just to say that it's not just the students that are getting bigger bills and less money to pay the bills with, so to speak. It's not just, it's also the faculty member. So I just think I don't see it as a sustainable, at least the way that we do it now. I don't see it as a sustainable model. Now, if I'm still doing what I'm doing now, then my son will have at least subsidized tuition, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which will be significant. That's 50% is still significant. But too much beyond that, I just don't know. I don't know. I think it's a wrap. I think it's a wrap ski.
Over the last 30 years, cost of education is almost 5x, by the way. There's no other kind of inflation where it's comparable, right? And it would make sense if the other side of the equation, in other words, if the value was actually also increasing, but the value is going downwards in terms of, we're not placing people at good jobs, but we're charging them 5 times more since the 80s. Okay. Anyways, let's continue.
And meanwhile, property values have skyrocketed. If you want to buy if you want to buy a house, that value's that's gone through the roof. So even getting your freaking foot in the door, it's a rap ski.
Non-traditional methods, because the majority of folks are going to just continue to hammer away till their death, looking forward to that. If I could just get to the end and have a few years of retirement, and a few $1,000s in my IRA, that model is broken. And if you think that things are going to change, I don't think that they are. So folks need to look at things differently. Also, I think I used to think that America had the best system, and the hard work and all that did pay off. It built the country that we have today, but it was at a great cost, a lot great cost of a lot of men that gave their entire lives to build these things up. And there's just folks, I guess, the younger folks just don't want that anymore. They don't want to live like that, and I can't say that I blame them per se. When I first started going to Europe,
You gonna say something?
I said broke.
I had never been to Europe until I married Mrs. W, and she comes from an international family. So I started traveling, and
He's
I
a
went there with kind of a
passport bro.
bias, thinking, America's always the
Passport
best and the greatest
bros.
for the best system. But when you get over there and you realize that, a lot of the Europeans don't put so much emphasis on just working all the time and grinding as the Americans do. And in many ways, I think that it might be even a better system. You just see more free time, more time with your family, more time to pursue interests and goals and such. And I think there's something really appealing to that.
Hey, can we stop
my
here?
granddad, he worked for 2.
This is interesting. I interviewed conversations with Dr. Thunder, a big YouTuber, and his platform's really exploded since I interviewed him. He had a big platform then, but it's called Better Sax, and it's all about saxophones, gadgets for saxophones, saxophone education. He's got like an education platform, and he's really done it. And he's a performer, but he's been a repairman and stuff like this. So he moved to Europe, and so he was living in New York, and in New York, like, it was like paycheck to paycheck. You got to say yes to everything. You're walking around, you're walking around like this and stuff, and that's your place in the world is about like this. You can't even put your so he was all of that kind of stuff, and so he just got tired of it. Plus, he didn't have health insurance, and it was a risk because you can't afford it, right? With the kind of paycheck to paycheck kind of thing that was going on. So then he moved to Europe and then started his platform, and he's been very successful. Congratulations to him for his success. He really hit he really hit a home run, really, like, right in the niche. He's just really did that well. But anyhow, I'm saying this to say that he was talking about how when he was doing gigs and stuff, I think he lives in France, and the way that they have it set up is that you just have to do a certain number of gigs, and then they just pay you, and the government pays you, and plus you get insurance, and it's a really great deal for art. In the state, France, they believe that the arts are important, and so they have a package. They got a deal for artists that makes it so that they can continue to do what they need to do. And then even like through the pandemic and stuff, when stuff really slowed down, people were still able to survive. So now here's the thing: who pays for that? See, that's always that's always the issue. Who pays for that?
So there's the Pareto Principle and then flattening of the Pareto Principle going on, generally speaking here. That's kind of like both. Wanted to just kind of frame it, because basically you have a place like, you have one place whereby you could become the top person and sell all the stuff, but most people are just nothing. Or you can have another place like, let's say, France, where we try to equalize things, right? And everybody else chips in a little bit, answering the question of who pays for it. But no one can really become a superstar. This reflects itself in many, many different aspects. In other words, we talk about upward mobility in United States versus in Europe. In Europe, there's not a lot of upward mobility and a lot of churn. The families that have a lot of power, the companies and the institutions that have a lot of power in Europe, tends to be static, right? It's more of a static, not so bumpy, not so crazy. And the trade-offs between these two things, you can't have it both ways, obviously, right? So everyone else is paying for it, right? Hence, no one can really kind of rise up meteorically. Um, that Pareto Principle, 80-20 rule, winner take all mentality is what, we tend to have over here in America. There's more chaos, there's more churn, people are going up and also coming down. In Europe, people generally stay in the middle. And who's paying for it is the person whom could theoretically become a meteor, right? And rise up. That person is kept down and they pay for it in a certain kind of sense, right? That is where the payment is coming from because everyone is heavily taxed, to put it simply, right? Everyone is heavily taxed, things are heavily regulated, and people get what they want at a particular level. Now, what can be the best? What's a good solution for this? I think the fact that it's now a global market makes it great in the sense that you don't have to be stuck in land A, where it's just a crazy rise and fall, or land B, where things are kind of equalized anymore. You don't have to be stuck in one of these two anymore because you can participate in various markets. You can live in one place. He could be living in Europe, living comfortably, while trying to create some music app, working with Silicon Valley somewhere where he can become a billionaire, right? He can try to you can try to work both angles, but that's an interesting thing. You cannot have it both ways. When he started talking about the hard work thing, I don't know. What do you think about because this same person whom could become a rising star, meteor, whom is paying, if you will, for an equalized system. For most of those people, work is natural. Like it's not like I'm grinding because it's like they just grind. Okay, they would be grinding regardless. Okay, um, if I wanted, because I'm talking now subjectively, that this person is thinking that way. So I'll use myself as an example. I would be grinding no matter what, and I've always been a grinder. Like I've always just been doing stuff. It might not have been things that were very productive or whatever, if you will, but forever I've always just looked at work as well, you got to be busy. Of course, you have to be doing something. Of course, I can't just be sitting here wasting time twiddling my thumbs. I want to always have some kind of activity. So perhaps this life of leisure in Europe would not necessarily be the best thing for such a person, right, Dr. Thunder? I mean, it might not be what they want. What are your thoughts about that?
Um, are you saying because they're not going to necessarily be rewarded for their effort?
And perhaps it's not. Yes. Now, because even though you're not working for the effort, there is an aspect of the reward, especially when it gets cycled back into the business, and then you're able to do more, right? Let's say, like, hey, I get remunerated for my efforts, hence I'm able to expand my business, hence I'm able to get more equipment, and then I can build, expand. I can go to Mars, right? Let's say, if you're an Elon Musk type. I don't know if you still hear me, or perhaps it's just your camera, right? But
Yeah.
so the idea is, yes, an Elon Musk would be an Elon Musk. They're just working and working. But it's like, if I can't buy, if you're not going to give me money to buy rockets, at some point it's like, I could do more. I want to do more. But part of the remuneration and the reward does go into the plowing back into the efforts, right? Into the buying of the rockets, into the building of the next company and all that kind of stuff. So I can do even more. So it's not just a question of the reward. It's a question of you're limiting actually how much I can actually do, how much of the effects of my work can be seen, right?
Yeah. I get that. One thing I was one thing I was thinking about is and this is sort of to your point that you made earlier. Uh you were talking about, let's see here. What was that? Okay. So you were talking about um being able to basically live in one place where you have more security while you're like sort of setting stuff up in another place that maybe is more volatile. But you know, but the risk, but you're kind of shielding yourself from the risk.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
though this is different, maybe the principle is similar.
Yeah,
So
it's like you musicians do when you're part of an institution and stuff. Anyways, go ahead.
right. So, but one thing I was thinking about, and this is just about, okay, so if I was to, for instance, move to New York, take a job that paid me the difference in um,
Cost of living.
the difference in cost of living. So I don't know, at least 2 times what I'm making now, 3 times, whatever it is, what I'm making now. Actually, yeah, I think it would be probably close to 3 times for me to live anywhere similar, for me to live in New York. So, I'm making 3 times the money. But the thing is that, so even now, say if I'm making a certain amount of money beyond what I actually need, that money goes a certain distance, right? That extra money, that investment money, save it
Mhm.
money, uh, get on Amazon and buy some junk money, whatever. Now, if I'm living in New York, then the amount of extra money we'll say is twice the amount of money. This is just simple math, or 3 times the amount of extra money. So that 3 times the amount of extra money, I could still invest in the same thing that I would have been if I was living somewhere in the Midwest where the cost of living was less, but the
Mhm.
total amount of money that stuff paid was uh, right, was also less, right?
Mhm.
So theoretically, if I wanted to buy a bunch of extra junk, I could. Amazon's rates are going to be the same if if I live in New York, if I live in California, or if I live in the Midwest. It's going to be the same price. So,
Mhm.
I mean, so first of all, what do you think of that? I don't know if that's actually useful for anything other than just buying junk, but you could use that
Yeah,
money. What do you
yeah.
think?
Well, I mean, if you're going to a higher cost of living place and all you're getting paid is the difference in the cost of living, then it's a wash. Typically, what people do, the reason why people are going to higher cost of living places, and I'm not sure, I'm just kind of riffing on the points that you made. Um, but typically, the reason why you would go there is because there's more opportunity for expansion. There's more opportunity for meteoric, or shall I say exponential growth, right? You're like, okay, I'm going to go to this place because that's where all the opportunities are. I'm not. I don't really have any extra money. I'm getting paid a lot more, but I don't really have any extra money at the end of the day. All I have is, I'm getting paid 3 times more, but all that 3 times goes to rent and all that kind of stuff. But in New York, I do have the opportunity to I don't know, start this thing or hop into, meet Jamie Dimon on the street, JP Morgan CEO, and give him my elevator pitch and then blah blah blah. Typically that's the only good reason, or there's great opportunity there for musicians, that kind of a thing. Otherwise, there really isn't a good reason to be living in. I'm living in the Bay Area, for example, and part of the reason why I'm there or in the West Coast, where it generally is expensive, is because of the opportunities that are there, and also because of the kind of thing that my engineering company concentrates on, which is seismic stuff, right? Which is highly concentrated earthquake stuff, concentrated in the West Coast. But what I think of what you said is there really would not be any real reason to just go to New York if all you're getting is the difference in cost of living, unless you were actually factoring the fact that there are more opportunities there. There's something else I can do in New York. There's some way where I can then participate in that Pareto Principle, exponential growth.
So then you might as well just live. And this is interesting because when I took the job at the institution I'm at, I was contemplating moving different places in the country where there are potentially more opportunities for someone that has the kind of skills that I have, that have been developed over a long career. Anyhow, and so I was like, okay, so let me go ahead and see what my options are. I had an opportunity to move to Chicago. I was looking at New York. I was looking at a couple other places, and then I also had applied for this particular position. And one of the benefits of this kind of position is that so I don't have any teaching responsibilities during the summer. So I told myself, okay, well, I can do some traveling during the summer. Of course, I haven't really fully taken advantage of this because, you get busy doing stuff, and then I get a bunch of gigs around where I live and stuff now. So yeah, there is that.
Yeah, so might as well just you want to be where one of the rules of money, right? In that video that I said I was going to do, and I never did yet, haven't done yet, my rules of money series. One of the basic ones is you got to keep your monthly obligations low, right? I'm not the kind of person that just says, "Oh, be frugal for frugal's sake," but I mean obligations, right? I don't care whether you go on a crazy binge in Vegas and just gamble a whole bunch of money. That's not a monthly obligation, right? But you want to then go back into your reasonable car in a reasonable part and your reasonable house in the reasonable part of the world somewhere, because that monthly obligations low is a great launch pad to be able to then do all kinds of interesting things. So 100% agree there on that point. Ladies and gentlemen, click the like button, share the stream. We're talking about the real reasons why Americans are not going back to work, because it's not working out for them.
2 companies. He was a mechanic. He worked for Ford. And he started working at a Ford garage when he got out of the war in 1945. And he worked only 2 places up until he retired. And even at the very end, after he'd been at the mechanic shop for 30 years, he still only had 3 weeks vacation. And he took every 3 weeks with me. One week for deer hunting, 1 week for elk hunting, and 1 week for prospecting gold panning. We went and did that. And I just think I appreciate how much work did he put in, and everything that he did in giving his life, to keep cars on the road and do things. But it was at the expense of his own desire and his own passions. It's a different mentality. I don't necessarily think that I'm not taking away from what he did, and I don't want to say that it wasn't a life well spent, but I think it could have been a life better spent to do something where you had more time to pursue goals, rather than just giving yourself as a cog in a machine, just giving yourself over to a system that has no loyalty to you, that can just replace you on a whim. I, for one, if I were a young man getting into the workplace, you've got to get started and you got to make money. And if you don't have business experience, it might not be responsible to go and just jump both feet into starting a business. But always kind of have that in your goal, have that as a goal in your mind. Let these big companies pay for your education, and get something that's going to be really practical. Get your electrician certificate, get your welding certificate, get your plumbing certificate, something that has a certificate that is somewhat regulated and somewhat specialized, where if they need a plumber, you can't just call the low bid guy. You got to have a journeyman there, and start demanding what is owed you. Start demanding, figure out what it is that is a living wage for your life. Are you a single guy?
Let me get in here. So this is interesting. This is exactly the advice that I would give young folks, trades, especially the young men. Get yourself a trade. And the thing is that getting a trade, that doesn't mean that you can't also go to college if you want to go to college. I'm not necessarily I'm not saying don't go to college. I'm saying get something that you can actually do something with. Like There's a lot, truck driving certifications rather. There's all kinds of things that you can do, and then that way, if something doesn't work the way you think it will, or as you're sort of on your journey trying to get to that dream job or whatever that situation is that everybody else is competing for, you can do something that's actually going to be putting real money in your pocket. This stuff is too expensive, and it's certainly too expensive to go to college and you don't even know what you want to do. You better know what you do when you go to college. If you don't know what you're going to do, you should just take a year off, go work. Take a year off. No, get out of high school, go straight to work, get a full-time job, and then that'll teach you what you like and what you don't like pretty quickly. And then you either decide that, hey, this seems like something for me. You can pursue a certification while you're doing that, or you'd be like, hey, maybe the college is the thing for me. And but at least it'll put a fire under you.
100%, man. Like, get a skill and then get a certification. Always look for things that whereby you can be a licensed professional, generally speaking, especially if you don't know what you want to do, right? If you're like, oh, I don't have, because there's some people, they have a passion. They're going to do this one thing, right? Fine. But for most other people, there are many options, and there should be options, especially if you're a man, whereby you can become a licensed professional, whether blue collar or white collar. That's one of the reasons why I went into engineering, and there were some other options in the sciences but they were all going to be something where I could be a professional. Now, dentists dentists make a lot of money, okay, because they have to be licensed and then start their own business. So I 100% back what you're saying. I always say, get a skill and then get a certification, okay, so you can leverage your skill for real, get from the marketplace what exactly you deserve, and then start leveraging other people's labor so that you have enough excess capital to then start leveraging capital, rinse, repeat. That's the way it works. Just as simple as getting that skill that requires that certification, and all of a sudden you're in demand. Like, no one else can do what you do as a licensed journeyman carpenter or electrician or dentist or engineer, whatever it may be. So even if you're going to go to college, make sure it's something where it is licensed, where you're going to go and you're going to become an accountant and get the CPA. You're going to go study law and pass the bar and get your legal license. There are many engineers that go to engineering school. Not only do they pay that money, but they put themselves through all kinds of crazy, I don't know why you'd want to do that to yourself. Take all that calculus, and they never get their engineering license. It's insane. Anyways, it's crazy. It's good too.
Yeah, it's I just wanted to say this. There's a passage of scripture. I think it's Moses, and he's saying, "What is it? So, God will make. What is it? What is it? Your gift will make room for you.
Mm-hmm.
Your gift will make room for you." And now, from a religious worldview, whatever you want to say, all of the gifts emanate from the throne of God. From God. He's the creator of these gifts. He gave you the gift in the first place. Skill is when you take a gift and you make it something. So skill is like, that's like grinding, that's like cultivating something until it actually looks like something. It starts to take a particular shape. That's the skill. Skill implies talent. Talent is a cultivated gift, right? So if you take that gift and you work with it and you keep working with it and you keep working with it, you can work it to the point where it will make room for you. Now maybe that seems abstract, but really what we're saying is that the skill becomes a source of revenue. It becomes a source of living. It's the it's, you know, it allows you to eat and create a certain kind of lifestyle and provide for a family. And then making room for you is you likely have other interests. You have other things that you're into. The room for you is to be able to stretch out and say, "Hey, what is some of this other things? What is this other stuff over here?" You know, that's what we're talking about. So, for instance, for me, my skill was music, and music facilitated everything and has facilitated everything, every single thing, all the meaningful relationships I have. It led me to my wife. It Music has paid my bills. It's facilitated a YouTube career, you know, and everything else because I make a living from music. Music is the skill that is creating that living, and then now I can explore these other avenues, and yeah. So I just wanted to.
100%. And those skills are in high demand. It's not like, yeah, it's really easy when you think about it, you know.
Maybe when you're building and you're getting started, maybe you can undercut some of the other guys, and maybe you can put that work in there and start building your company, start building your business up to the point.
And oh yeah, by the way, this thing he's saying about, go study under someone, like it's basically the old apprentice model is what he's saying, right?
Yep.
Use these
Mhm.
big companies as a way of getting in there and skilling up. Jump from company to company, okay? Gather these different skills, okay? Different perspectives. Work at a small business where you can see the full frame, where you can see clients come in, you can see the accounting going on, you can see how they invoice, you can see how they win business, you can see the sales process, and then go to a bigger company where they have more, of a mega operations processes and stuff like that. Learn that a little bit. Go to a middle-sized thing. All the while, obviously, you're working towards getting your own certifications, and then boom, you start your own thing. That's the model. That's the way. You're not supposed to be stuck under your master as an apprentice forever. That's what this new employee model is, where it's like, I'm just supposed to be an employee forever. It lasted a while for the boomers, basically. The boomers were able to ride that train. But millennial and onward, no more train for you.
Where you can not be your body and your life not being farmed for greedy people, and not you not receiving the benefit of that.
Stop with the greedy stuff. All the while, sir, you're telling us how to be greedy. Your whole point here is how we need to go out there and be greedy. People always they always contradict themselves. They're, greed for thee, but not greed. For me, it's not greed. When I'm doing it, it's not greed. But when you're doing it, it's come on, man.
Yeah, he actually just got done saying, figure out how you can undercut somebody else. He just got done saying that.
Yep.
Literally, he just got done saying those words.
Yep.
And now
those other people are, anyways.
And for you guys that are seasoned and tradesmen and have a valuable skill, which is going to be anybody that can fix or repair or keep industry running or drive any of these things, you guys are super, super valuable, more valuable now than in any time in your memory. And just don't sell yourself out cheap. Demand the money that you deserve. Demand the money that you require to have a comfortable living, to be able to provide for your family, and take no substitutes. Let them pay. Let the elites, let those who have been stealing from us.
Okay, so this is interesting. And everybody's going to have to go through this. So everyone is going to have to go through you don't know how much you should ask for. You don't really know. I mean, you can do your research, and of course, having a mentor is very helpful because they can kind of just help to clarify and tell you what those numbers should at least start at, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's part of the reason that's helpful. But invariably, you're going to end up doing something or being asked to do something. You don't know how much to ask to charge for it, or a certain kind of job, and you don't know if you should take the risk. It's a small company. They don't really have money yet, but if you get in right now, you know, that kind of thing, you can set up yourself for the future, and then, you know, you end up making real money after a while because you were one of the first people, you know. So it's always that trying to figure out, you know, what the deal is in figuring out and doing a good job of like calculating what your actual expense is going to be involved with doing a job, you know. That's something I know that was very difficult for me to gauge when I was much younger. And I did a bunch of stuff where, man, I should have asked for a lot more money, you know. And then there's the sort of trade-off in, I think teachers are sort of notorious for this. There's such a love for teaching that teachers are willing to like work for nothing or work for very little, you know. Like even like tutors, you can find a tutor for your kid for like not very much money, like below slave wages, you know, and they'll be happy to do it and smiling and doing a bunch of extra stuff. Hey, you want me to make him a sandwich too? You know, because the thing is that people are they're so passionate about teaching. Okay, that's great, but you need to, you still got to get enough money so that you can survive. And that may mean that you have to be willing to lose a gig to someone that's going to undercut you, that's willing to work for less. I mean, you have to figure out which you know, what it's going to take for you to be able to sustain the kind of lifestyle that you want.
Teaching is a tough one for a couple of reasons. The reason you mentioned, which is, you know, and I know that, I know like there was a time, and this probably will be a time in the future where I'm going to teach. But when I was looking for, you know, teaching gigs in engineering in community colleges, while I still had another job, the reason I was looking for that was not because I wasn't looking at the pay. Like that was not why I wanted to do it, right? I just wanted to do it, right? So I understand 100% that passionate aspect.
That was going to be your super chat Jesus money.
Yeah, that was going to be the super chat Jesus money. The other aspect of why teaching is difficult is because it's not like let me give another example. Being a barber, everyone knows what it costs to cut your hair, right? So you can kind of gauge, if I'm going to work at this barber shop, how much is he making? You can kind of gauge that. Oh, how much does this plumber? Those kinds of things. You get the idea. One of the good, and I mentioned this kind of inadvertently or just kind of passing when I say go work for a small company. Working at a small company in any industry will tell you that, give you that information about what exactly the clients are paying. Okay, if you pay attention. One of my first, I had an engineering internship, final year of college, at this company called KCG Engineering, and that's where I kind of saw, because you know we sometimes we have to kind of do the billing too or send the invoice out to the client. I saw, okay, so this is how the money flows. I kind of knew what they were bringing in, kind of understood, you know, what engineering, you know, that kind of engineering services. Teaching is difficult, obviously, because it's like you have this institution. Where does the money actually come from? You know, like, how do I know? You know, it's hard to gauge, right? So in all other aspects, just to reiterate my point about going to a small, one of the things you learn from a small place, but even if you don't learn from a small place, or you can have a mentor, for example, is you want to know what a particular skill in a profession brings in from the market. Then you can kind of gauge that, hey, you know what? Just like earlier in this video, in part one, ladies and gentlemen, go check out part one on Dr. Thunder's channel. When the welder found out that he was getting paid $28 an hour, but his boss was charging $280 an hour, you want to know those things. And they're not secrets, they're not huge secrets. Like, what is the boss charging for welding, right? And then that kind of gives you an idea, some kind of negotiation leverage. The ultimate thing that one should do, one other thing that you could do, is also just move close to the money. In other words, move towards sales/business development. In that area, you know you're the one bringing in the money. you're like, so you can say, hey, bro, look, I just paid. It's Q1 already, okay? It's only Q1, and I brought in 3 times my salary. So don't tell me don't give me no whatever. Don't pull the wool over my eyes. Okay. I know what I'm bringing in here. Okay. Those are some, but definitely it's important to know what the money is, and so that you don't undercut yourself and all that kind of stuff. And the ways I just mentioned are some of the ways to go about doing it. But yeah, good point.
And have been taking our effort. Let them pay a man what he's worth, because they can't do anything. And if guys will hold out and they just won't just jump into everything and just think, I gotta work, I gotta be grinding. Know your value, know what you're worth, and understand that work is very important. And that's something that you need to do, and you need to have a purpose, and we need to have resources and those for things, but not at the expense of losing everything, which is your vitality and your life and your happiness, and watching your kids grow up. Get a trade, hang in there, demand what you're worth. It's going to be interesting to see what happens in the next 5-10 years. I'm going to be loving seeing tradesmen that have special skills. I like to see them driving the Mercedes and living in the $1 million houses, because it's totally possible. And that's kind of the direction we're going. Thanks for watching. Hang in there.
They do that, by the way. There's always levels to the game, by the way. But the tradespeople that are working with the big, let's say you're an electrician, right? Now I work on a lot of data centers. Let's say the electrician companies, right? Big ones out here in the Bay Area, like Cupertino Electric in Rosendin. Those guys are making a lot of money. The foreman or the superintendent, yes, he his truck is worth a Mercedes. He just doesn't like a Mercedes. Okay, he's got I'm not into trucks, but those. I'm sure, Dr. Thunder, those super expensive trucks that are out there. Those trucks are not cheap. You go to the parking lot of some of these for these tradesmen and these particular companies and whatnot, mechanical contractors and all this other kind of stuff. They're making some big money. You just gotta level up. Don't just stop at the basic skill. Either you're gonna go on your own, or you're gonna work your way up to like a Cupertino Electric and work on Amazon data centers all day, and you have no problems whatsoever. But I think the video just stopped, right? And this is a good spot for us to start wrapping up, because I also have to keep it short today. But overall thoughts about this is that I like that he did follow the arc. He started, this is a thing called arc welding. I just came in my head because I was going to talk about. He followed the arc, and I was going to start from the welding place. And I was like, oh, arc welding. Anyways, whatever. He started from the welder, $28 an hour, and seeing his boss charging $280 an hour. And he was like, oh, this is not right. And then I was like, whoa, that's not the right message to get from that. The right message is to go, okay, I get the business now. I know it. How do I go from here to be my boss? Okay, I do this. I get this particular certificate. And then I do that tough thing called selling and making a name for myself, building a reputation. And then I can get there. So gladly he went there. Through that journey, we went through this interesting part of the Pareto Principle stuff, whereby, you cannot have both ways. You either have a lot of volatility, a lot of up and down, a lot of, you're grinding, and perhaps it's going to only one person or two, blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of upward mobility, but downward mobility as well. Or you can go to a place where things are more even. And then I said, hey, you know what? With globalization and with the internet and all these kinds of things, you can go live in a place where your monthly obligations are low. Shout out to Kaizo. He's over here in the chat, right? He's out there living in a place where his monthly obligations are low, but he's working mainly on the web, right? As an internet person doing different kinds of things, right? So, and I think that especially in perhaps Gen Z, this will be even more natural, because even with millennials, I'm a millennial, I guess. We kind of went through analog and then moved into digital. Gen Z is all digital, right? Like their world is all internet, all, global, cosmopolitan, and all that kind of stuff. So if you're high level enough and you're, the high level and intelligent Gen Z people, the world will be their oyster in this regard. They will be the ones taking advantage of the globalization. Perhaps they will be the ones that would succeed more in this entrepreneurial world. Somebody was complaining about ChatGPT taking his job with regards to, AI in general. Not all AI is ChatGPT. AI that does graphic design taking away. No, And no one saw this whole graphic design thing being one of the first things to go, because I'm sure, as you know now, Dr. Thunder, you could just tell the AI, hey, I need this logo, I need this, and it could just give you like 10 iterations, and it's like you don't have to pay anybody anymore. But I think the guy wasn't looking at it properly. He was complaining that, oh, like I used to, now we could just produce this thing in like in minutes, and but it's like, dude, no, there is still the question of judgment, right? So, Dr. Thunder, because we're talking about art, and it doesn't have to be, and it's all the same thing whether it's music or not. Music is definitely even more complex. But just because you have some kind of synthesizer or some kind of thing that can give you different palettes and different colors and different, doesn't mean you cannot still ply your trade and apply your own unique judgment and say, hey, yes, I want it to be this way. What's the pride in spending hours, grinding, chipping at the stone when the thing could just give you five different shapes of stones and then you pick one? I don't know. You may comment on that aspect, but well, let me ask you, yeah, directly here, and then give your closing thoughts. What do you think about that thing where someone is complaining that ChatGPT is removing a certain kind of authenticity from his work? Now they just have, AI can just generate all these images. I'm thinking you can still use your judgment. This is now, I mean, back in the day when we had just paint, and then when photography came out, we were like, oh, this will ruin everything. But then photographers found a way of still now making you still have good photographers and bad photographers, right? And and then Photoshop came out and they were like, oh, this is going to ruin photography. It didn't ruin photography. The photographers now incorporated Photoshop, and they still were able to use their judgment in using Photoshop properly or not. And now it's the AI stuff doing graphics, and they're like, oh, it's going to ruin it. And I'm just thinking, but I don't know what your thoughts are. What do you think about this loop?
Well, that's the whole technology.
Mm-hmm.
You always have folks that are they always look at technology with a side eye, and they see it as something that is it's going to change things, it's going to eliminate people, it's going to X, Y, and Z. That's the way that they see technology. And I always see technology, and I'm a gear junkie. I have way too much equipment. I have, and I'm always like looking at the next pedal, the next, thing is like, oh man, what if I got that? This would be the thing. Now, the trouble. So here the part of the issue here. Part of the issue is that, say, how can I do that? So part of the issue is that you don't want to put too much stock in whatever the technology is. Okay. So that's like that thing where, like I said, I'm a gear junkie. So I could be like, man, if I get that one piece of gear, that's going to be the secret. That's the secret sauce right there. That's be the thing that unlocks everything, So you don't want to be that guy. But you also don't want to be the guy that's like, this new technology is going to replace humanity.
Mm-hmm.
Now the other people are making a different argument about, like, Skynet and all that. That's a different argument. And they're actually, two dads react tomorrow night. There may actually be a reason why we should fear an aspect of AI, but it's not the replace, art reason. That's not really the reason. I don't think that people want to hear what a machine thinks. I think they want to hear what people think. So ultimately, as far as developing a community around the art, which is really what sells the art,
Mm-hmm.
developing the community doesn't want to talk to a robot. They don't want to talk to Chat GPT. So
Yeah, it's this whole mimetic thing, and then role models and culture and taste development. Whom is the arbiter of taste? It's going to be a person. It's going to be somebody that people are looking to. Unless and until we completely create this machine that you can completely reproduce with and have status, play status. Like, at which point then it's like, okay, indistinguishable from a human being. Then it begs the question, why? Then you just made the loop back to a human being. Like, yes, we have to have a human being. Yes, I go ahead.
Now, maybe the question is, how many human beings do we actually need?
Ah,
And
okay.
okay, and I can see where people would be afraid of that. But this is why I always say we need to constantly be reinventing ourselves. You need to constantly be, as you say, skilling up, constantly acquiring new skills, becoming more and more aware of technology and incorporating that and learning the new thing as soon as it comes out. We need to be doing that, because if you don't do that, that's when you're actually at risk of going the way of the dinosaur.
When you were talking about the technology, the secret sauce thing reminded me of a guitar player that it was always about this one pedal, right? And obviously that pedal changed every 6 months. After he got that pedal, then it's like, oh, this other pedal.
Yeah, yeah,
Remember
yeah.
that? Like,
My dad always said, he always told me, my dad always told me, uh, wants are insatiable.
mhm.
Wants are insatiable. It doesn't matter. As soon as you get the thing that you think is the thing, it shifts to something else. And it's like almost before you even touched the thing or used it, your mind has already started to idealize something else. That is
Mhm.
just the nature of people. But yeah, so tomorrow I've got um four four streams. So hopefully you'll catch me one of those. I've got a Car Thunder in the morning, and then Tenor Talks. That'll be at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then I've got 6 p.m. I'm doing a Horace Silver Dr. Thunder Quartet, performing the music of Horace Silver. Dr. Thunder Quartet plus the great trumpeter John Douglas, Professor John Douglas, and that's gonna be great. All that Horace Silver music is all quintet stuff, so it's always like trumpet, tenor sax, or trumpet, alto sax, and then piano, bass, and drums. So that's gonna be really great. Looking forward to that. And then Two Dads React. It's probably going to be about 10:45 once I get all packed up and back home. So looking forward to that. And then Friday morning, I'll have an open panel show on my Car Thunder, so folks can come and check that out. A lot of stuff going on. We'll have a Case Closed this Sunday. Case Closed, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That will be on Ike's channel. And yeah, all kinds of stuff, happening. There's been like a ton of stuff that's gone down since we've done a Case
Mhm.
Closed. Last couple
Mhm.
weeks we didn't do a show, and like it seems like Black YouTube is exploding. And then it's like, goodness gracious, all this crazy stuff going on. So we'll have a really thought-provoking conversation with an all-star panel.
All right, indeed. We are out. And shout out to the poll. 60% of people say yes, people will become entrepreneurial. Um, we shall wait and see. Peace out until next time. Take it right out.